I will now call to order the Clackamas County Board of Commissioners Issues and Updates meeting on December 5th, 2023. County Administrator Gary Schmidt, you're up first.
Thank you, Chair Smith. Commissioner West is on his way. Commissioner Schrader is out of the office today. Chair, would you please convene as the Housing Authority of Clackamas County?
I will recess as the Board of County Commissioners and convene as the Housing Authority of Clackamas County.
You're now meeting as the Board of Directors of the Housing Authority of Clackamas County. This is a request for consent agenda. Item 1, approval to apply for a federal grant to continue the resident opportunity and self-sufficiency programs for public housing residents. Grant value is up to $272,250 for 3 years with a match of up to $68,062.50. Funding is through the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, and matching funds through the Metro Supportive Housing Services Measure funds. No county general funds are involved. Denise Swanson, Deputy Director of Health, Housing, Human Services, and Tony Carter, Executive Director of the Housing Authority. Go ahead, please.
The ROS grant covers the costs for one coordinator for all of public housing. And this coordinator position is for 3 years, and it allows them to do the resident advisory board meetings and set up some specialized programs for public housing participants.
Questions or comments from commissioners? Seeing no objections.
Thank you. Next, Chair, would you please convene as the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District?
I will recess as the Housing Authority of Clackamas County and convene as the North Clackamas County Parks and Recreation District.
You are now meeting as the Board of Directors of the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District. First is Advisory Board and Commission appointments. Tony, go ahead, please.
District Advisory Committee staff by North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District currently has 2 openings on their committee due to term expirations. Through a recruitment process, the City of Milwaukee is recommending Lisa Beatty and Ali Feuerstein to their first terms.
I move to approve the appointment.
Seconded.
Oral.
Do I hear a second?
Seconded.
Commissioner Savas has moved we approve the District Advisory Committee appointments of Lisa Beatty and Ali Fernstein, and Commissioner Shull has seconded the motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Tony, please take the poll.
Director West.
Aye.
Director Shull.
Aye.
Director Savas.
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye. Motion passes 4-0. Thank you very much.
You're still meeting as the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District Board. This is request for consent agenda. Item 1, approval of a grant agreement with the Oregon State Marine Board for the Maintenance Assistance Program. Grant value is $9,500 over 2 years with a match of $6,332. Funding is through the Oregon State Marine Board with matching funds from the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District General Fund. No county general funds are involved. Cindy Becker, Acting Director of the NCPRD, and Dominic Contreras, Deputy Director. Go ahead, please.
Good morning. Dominic's going to take this one. This is an easy one.
Well, thank you. We're seeking approval for this grant. This grant is going to help reduce our overall costs. It's a 2-year grant. It's work we have to do whether or not we receive this grant, so it reduces the county's and the district's overall funding required to maintain that park, docks, bathrooms, that type of things that we do on a daily basis.
And just for the record, can you just state which park this is?
The Milwaukee Bay Park.
Okay, thank you.
And this is for the boat ramp?
Yeah, all inclusive in that park. I would say we've been having this grant renewed over the last 12 years is what I found out. So it's kind of just a renewal of that grant application that we're requesting approval for.
Thank you. Seeing no objections?
Item 2, approval of a professional services contract with Design Workshop, Inc. for consulting services to develop a Parks and Recreation System Plan. Total value not to exceed $358,028. Funding through the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District Capital Asset Fund. No county general funds are involved.
Good morning, Commissioners. We've already talked about this last week at the policy session. We made some changes to the contract based on your input, and so we will have a hard stop, if you will, after the planning phase is done. We will come back to the board to seek approval for either doing the actual plan development for the entire district or for unincorporated. So we've made those changes, and that's why the contract says up to $358,000. There's about a $3,000 savings by not doing the Milwaukee in the final plan.
Okay. We approve phases 1 and 2, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And then Phase 3 would be the remainder. Commissioner Scholl?
Okay, no. City Becker just answered my question, thank you.
Commissioner Savas?
Yeah, so for, I think there may have been a little bit of confusion out of the last discussion, so the motion that the administrator first made, a suggested motion, even though he doesn't make motions, but his suggested motion was that in our discussion about the cost sharing with the city of Milwaukee, that we, go forward with phase A and B, or 1 and 2, or A and B, I guess, and then, seek a cost sharing for the second phase. And we didn't approve that, and he modified the motion and was silent on that thing because the conversation was going along the lines of trying to have a discussion with Milwaukee to share in the data gathering of the first phases. So I want to clarify that that's what we're working on.
Yes.
And the intent is to share the entire cost or not for the project.
Thank you, Commissioner. We're trying to separate out that conversation from the contract, and so you're correct. We will meet with Milwaukee and ask them to share the entire cost, which is about $7,000 for the contract. But we will still go ahead from a contractual basis. We're still moving ahead based on that conversation we have. That doesn't negate going back and asking, having the conversation with Milwaukee for the whole contract.
Well, maybe we're saying two different things now. So just to clarify, I think where the conversation went was getting City of Milwaukee to cost share for all the phases of the contract, which I understood that the $7,000 number was only for the last phase, not the first two phases.
I'm sorry, Commissioner, if that wasn't clear. It's been a little confusing. The $3,000 is for the second phase. So it's $7,000 for the whole piece. My understanding from the conversation we had in policy session is that you wanted to go forward with the entire district on the planning phases. And then, but we would still ask Milwaukee to share in that cost, but you wanted to go forward with that. And then we would have that hard stop afterwards and come back. So, and I do remember the comment from Commissioner West to say, well, why would they contribute if we know we're going to go ahead with it? So it was a little confusing. So the way that the contract changes reflect what I interpreted the conversation to be and the motion to be. And again, we will still go and talk with Milwaukee about the first phase in terms of just, it's a good partnership to have that contribution, but that you still wanted the data. That was what I understood.
Yeah, and again, the rationale for this, I just restate for anyone new listening, is the concern that the last effort, nearly a couple $100,000 for the last effort in 2014 and 15, failed because ultimately it was not approved by the city, or in cities actually at the time. So I don't want to have another stranded investment. I don't want to see this effort go forward with Milwaukee having discussions and actions about withdrawing from the district. It seems to me, I don't want to set ourselves up for more stranded investment, to make sure that we come back at, soon, whatever that may be, sometime next year, I'm assuming, come back with some kind of clear direction so that the work, the final product, is for the district in some kind of boundaries with or without them. And I don't want to spend twice the money or see that money stranded again. It's not good use of public funds, and it's not responsible to throw any more money away if Milwaukee's not interested in being a partner. And hopefully we can get to a good place.
Right.
I want it to be amicable and keep it amicable, but I want people to understand why we had that discussion and why we're having it again today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner West?
I agree with everything you said, Commissioner Savas, and I want Milwaukee to pay what I think is its fair share. But right now, I feel like we don't have clear direction. I feel like we're saber rattling a little bit. In our ask, it's just in something that already is quite tense, and a little bit of loggerheads. There's not really any teeth or leverage. So I think that's a fair question to ask here about how we are proceeding forward.
I think did we not approve as I said, my opening comment, we are moving ahead with phases 1 and 2. And then staff is going to come back, present us with that data, and then we'll make a decision on phase 3 and how we proceed with that.
Correct.
Is that correct?
That is correct. And we're asking the city of Milwaukee to contribute to the entire cost of this study. That hasn't happened yet. That will happen ASAP. But I also heard you don't want to pause on this pending that decision. You want to move forward on phase 1. So my question to you, commissioners, if you want to pause until we've gotten commitment from the city, then we can pull this item.
I do not.
Okay.
I do not want to pause. We need to show some momentum going forward on this. But maybe commissioners, you have a different opinion. If we do pause on this, that's not going to be good out there for the citizens who are expecting this to happen, and by rights deserve to have planning done for the parks. Commissioner Scholl.
No, let's get this phase 1 and 2 done. Let's not pause on it.
Yeah, and just, Chair, just my last comments on this is that, you know, I don't think there's any right answers. I took heat for supporting it from some people that had very, very concerns that it would be wasted money again, and they didn't want another plan on the books or on the shelf collecting dust that was not usable. Again, the 2014-15 product. But also took heat. No matter what, we're going to take heat either way, each which way.
Yeah, probably. Probably. Commissioner West.
I guess I understand that we take heat, that's part of the job, but I don't want to just be a saber rattler. Like, why are we going through that part of the process? It will just probably create more tension if we're not going to be willing to make an ask without any leverage behind it. That, to me, doesn't seem
Well, we haven't finished phase 3.
right, but there's still the ask coming like right now to ask Milwaukee to financially contribute, which I think they should, and I think that's a strong argument. But I also think that we're saying we're moving forward no matter what, so pretty please, and they're gonna be like, no, buzz off, and we're gonna be like, okay, we're moving. So that's my concern, and maybe, please bring me clarity if I need it, but I think that that's a legitimate concern.
Yeah, well, Commissioner West, thanks for that. I just want to clarify. I see it a little bit differently. I see it as an olive branch that we're moving forward with this, not as saber rattling, frankly, from our perspective. You know, I use the word amicable several times, and I also said not adversarial. I see this as an olive branch. In fact, we're moving forward in good faith, and I'm hoping that good faith is reciprocal.
I think that you are more altruistic than I am, Commissioner Salas, but I'll leave it at that.
I
Okay.
am sometimes foolishly optimistic. I will admit
There's
that.
nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with Commissioner West asking the questions either. I see no objections to this moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Chair, would you please convene as the Board of County Commissioners?
I will recess as NCPRD and convene as the Board of County Commissioners.
Next is request for consent agenda under the Board of County Commissioners. The item for elected officials is being pulled until next week at the request of the Sheriff's Office. Next, County Council. Item 1, approval of a board order to extend the cable television franchise with Northwest Fiber LLC, doing business as Ziply Fiber. Franchise fee revenue is $32,000 over 2 years. Funding through Northwest Fiber LLC. No county general funds are involved. Andrew Naylor from the County Council's office. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Commissioners. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of information on this because Jeff Munns is usually the person in charge of this. He's doing a new employee training as we speak. So hopefully, if there are any questions, I could try to answer them. Otherwise, I think Gary summarized it correctly. It's a
So it
short-term
says it's
extension.
an extension of an agreement we already have.
Correct,
So I think this should not be problematic for us moving forward.
correct.
I do have, well, you probably can't answer it. So this is agenda item 2, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Correct. So my question is the motorcycle unit used, or is this the?
No, I'm sorry. It's the County Council, item 1.
This is the cable franchise. Yeah, this is,
We put aside the sheriffs for now. waiting
Okay,
for
the entire sheriff's piece.
All of the sheriff's items.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay. So it's agenda item 1, not 2 then.
It's under County Council, item 1.
Okay, never mind.
Yes, and this is an existing cable franchise that we've always done, so I see no reason, Commissioners, why we shouldn't move ahead. See no objections. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. Next, Health, Housing, Human Services. Item 1, approval of an amendment expanding the scope of work and increasing funding of a personal services contract with Northwest Family Services for adult and youth housing supportive services. The amendment value is $472,252.21 for 9 months. Total agreement value is increased to $8,250,381.21 for 3 years. Funding is through the Supportive Housing Services Measure funds. No county general funds are involved. Denise Swanson, Deputy Director, Health, Housing, Human Services. Go ahead, please.
Good morning again, Commissioners. So essentially, this amendment has 3 components to it. First and foremost, it's assisting youth ages 18 to 24 that are coming out of foster care so that they can secure permanent housing. And as you can imagine, they need a lot of support in moving into adulthood and the housing piece. So this is going to help them with rental assistance that we get from the feds, emergency shelter services, housing navigation, and then, of course, wraparound supportive case management. Additionally, this amendment adds a mental health clinician to support frontline staff. So this is basically, this clinician is to support people that are serving this population because they have a lot of mental health needs as well. So that's what this is doing. And then finally, the amendment adds funding to build organizational capacity to expand their services to meet the growing needs of residents and expand supportive housing services in the county.
There's a lot.
So question, where in the county geographically are these services, or they're located, or this company's located, or nonprofit, or where do they serve?
So this is throughout, Northwest Family Services service throughout Clackamas County.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, thank
And then
you.
the next, we're going to talk about Ant Farm, which is then specifically rural Clackamas County.
Thank you.
All right.
Yep.
Thank you. Seeing no objections.
Item 2, approval of a personal services contract with Ant Farm for supportive services for youth in the rural areas of Clackamas County. Total contract value is $760,446.72 for 7 months. Funding is through budgeted county general funds.
Yep, so not our SHS, this is our budgeted county funds for rural Clackamas County. So this is with Ant Farm, who you're well aware of. And this one is going to support first emergency shelter for families that have youth, then moving them into rapid rehousing programs. So that's navigation and placement, rental assistance, supportive services, so that they can transition from temporary to permanent housing. And then finally, supportive housing case management to help them stay in housing. So we expect to serve around 55 households total.
Wow, very nice. And Ant Farm services the entire rural Clackamas County?
In rural Clackamas County, yes. Yep.
Commissioner Shaw.
Yes. Your previous item was funded by Supportive Housing Services Measure, no county general funds. This item, $760,000 for 7 months, equates to $1.3 million in 12 months. Can you tell me why this item is being funded by county general funds instead of supportive housing services measure?
Yes, Commissioner Schultz. So our rural, SHS does not cover rural.
Okay.
Okay, so this is our budgeted funds from general fund for rural Clackamas.
Okay, and this was budgeted during our budget cycle in the spring, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so, but it's coming up now for 7 months. Why is that? That takes us from December until the end of the fiscal year in 30 June of next year. So why is it coming up now? Curious.
Good morning. Adam Brown, Deputy Director, Health, Housing, and Human Services. Good question, Commissioner Schultz. So we've talked a lot about the repositioning strategy of taking our pre-SHS funds, including County General Fund, and repositioning those funds to our rural areas. So you're seeing this timing now because we've backed those funds out of urban area contracts. We've backfilled those contracts with SHS funds. Now we carried out a procurement for youth services. Now we're reallocating those resources to the rural area. So you're seeing the launch of programming that the county never had before. And our contract terms we're trying to make them annual so that we can negotiate new contract budgets with service providers annually. So you're just seeing us execute through the end of the fiscal year. Then we'll turn right around in the spring in alignment with our budget process and allocate subsequent years' funding.
Okay, well, the reason I mentioned this morning is because anytime something comes up and it's funded by the general fund, it immediately turns on, caution lights, questions in my mind, okay? Because I will continue to look very closely at any expense like this. This is this is expensive. Like I said, it equates out to $1.3 million in 12 months. So you can assure the board that that expenditure of general funds is critical and cost-effective.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner West.
So the cost per, it says household, or is it 55 youth? Or is it like, or are they a household, one youth foster kid aging out of the system is a household? Can you explain to me what you mean by household?
Yeah, and it's really the capacity to serve that many households at any given time. So you may have people cycle through our system. Of course, if we can graduate them off services, that opens up system capacity. But yeah, our youth programming is individuals age 16 to 24.
Okay, so it does, initial look here, look expensive for the amount of households being served. So to piggyback a little bit on what Commissioner Scholl was maybe alluding to, is that filling the gap with this population that we're trying to prevent homelessness? Or are we just scratching the surface and spending a ton of money to just barely dip our toe into dealing with this issue? With this population?
That's a good question. And I think, historically, our rural communities were underserved because of our limited resources. We're fortunate to have more resources now. So we're working to build programming that didn't exist before. We believe that in combination with the general funds that we have available, the additional funding that's been made available by the state through the governor's emergency order, and then the ongoing funding that we're going to get in 5511 at the state, which the states are working on those ongoing allocations now, that we can make a huge dent in homelessness in rural Clackamas County. Ant Farm's already doing a great job of building relationships with our rural communities. So I can't answer your question, Commissioner, in terms of saying, yes, this investment will end rural homelessness in rural Clackamas County, but it's going to go a long way.
Not quite my question. Is there 200 foster care youth that we're trying to need service? We're only getting 55 for this dollar figure. Like, I want to know, like, what we're actually, the ROI, what we're actually, like, tackling here. Because this isn't, I am going to support this today because we have what we have to deal with, but it does seem really expensive.
And I can get an answer to that question for you about what is the anticipated system need. That's something we're trying to look at all the time is, what is the existing need and how far are individual investments going in meeting that need? What's the gap and how do we refine the services to close that gap further?
And I trust your guys' work in this, but it's nice to have that data before we write this check.
I hear you.
Commissioner Savas will say something, but first I want to say, I don't know if you remember the discussions that we've had, because we have the SHS funding, has allowed the county opportunities to take a general fund, of which this was approved many, 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 many years ago, and it's ongoing. We're able to take this general funding and supplant it into areas where SHS funding does not qualify. That's the issue with this. And I think you're doing a very good job. The governor has an emergency allocation to the county that we can do in rural communities, and it's really good. Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, I don't see all the staff I'd like to address this to, but I'll just say it, and that is that I do constantly hear very positive feedback for the work we're doing. I know we don't have enough resources for the rural areas. Certainly we have that for the urban area through supportive housing services, but I just want to just give you all kudos for the good work you're doing. I'm hearing feedback from outside of Clackamas County and within Clackamas County about how successful we're doing. Do we need more housing, permanent housing? Absolutely. Do we need more sheltering? Absolutely. But it takes time. But I think that we are, compared to our neighboring counties, we're doing great work, and I just want to give you all credit for that.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Absolutely. Seeing no objections, thank you.
Item 3, approval of a revenue intergovernmental agreement with Washington County to partner on a notice of funding opportunity for the Tobacco Prevention Community Grant. Agreement value is $105,000 for 20 months. Funding is through Oregon Health Authority, tobacco tax revenue. No county general funds are involved.
So this one is an IGA with Washington. We're going to combine our dollars with Clackamas and Washington County to do a grant process, essentially, to give out $50,000 grants to community-based organizations for tobacco cessation. So we can work together on that.
Questions or comments? See no objections.
Item 4, approval of a 340B Pharmacy Services Revenue Agreement with Rite Aid Headquarters Corporation for disbursement of 340B drugs. Agreement value is $210,000 for 3 years. Funding is through Rite Aid Headquarters Corporation. No county general funds are involved.
So this is essentially housekeeping. Health Centers is in the process of switching our 340B third-party administrator provider from one organization to another. So that's what this is.
Questions or comments? See no objections.
Item 5, approval of a health care services contract with Care Oregon for medication primary pathway expansion. Contract value is $750,000 for 2 years. Funding is through Care Oregon. No county general funds are involved.
So this is also health centers, and the revenue provided through this agreement will support the expansion of psychiatric evaluations and medication management and increase the health center's division's capacity to serve individuals in a medication primary pathway. So right now, we're serving around 200 clients in medication management that also have therapy. This allows us to serve another 100 clients that would just do medication management that may not need therapy.
Questions or comments? See no objections. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, Transportation and Development. Item 1, approval of sale documents for 2 properties sold at the November 2023 surplus property auction. Total value is $37,295. Funding is through purchasers. No county general funds are involved. Dan Johnson, Director of Transportation and Development. Go ahead, please.
Good afternoon, Chair Smith and Commissioners. You're very familiar with this. These are surplus properties. The board identified them as surplus. They went through an auction process with CCSO. We received bids on them. Essentially, approval of these quick claims will finalize those sales. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Questions or comments? See no objections.
Item 2, approval of an amendment to a funding agreement between Clackamas County and the Clackamas County Historical Society for projects that will foster an understanding of the history of the Jennings Lodge Camp Meeting Site and Retreat Center. Amendment value is $9,425.15. Total agreement value is increased to $175,925.15. Funding through Jennings Lodge Camp Meeting Site and Retreat Center Education and Preservation Fund. No county general funds are involved.
This is a duh. I'm going to be frank with you. Essentially, there were dollars that were set aside. We talked about this back on November 8th. We awarded that contract to a certain group for those monies that were set aside. We didn't consider the interest that was gained. And essentially, we have agreements in place with a various number of entities that submitted and secured the funding, that any interest secured should go to the recipient of the award. So essentially, all this does is increase that award by that $9,000 and gives that interest to the recipient. That's all it does.
So essentially, you got to zero out the account.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And then we had an overhead cost that we were able to secure, but the agreements are pretty specific on where, if there's any interest gain, where that interest should go. Yep.
See no objections. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 3, approval of an intergovernmental agreement with Government Camp Village Special Road District related to Y East Trail Road. Agreement value is $60,000. Funding is through the County Road Fund. No county general funds are involved.
There's a long history to this discussion around Y East. It's up in the government camp area. Essentially, we have a road district up there. Currently, the county maintains maintenance responsibility for this particular road. In discussions with the district, they have interest in assuming that responsibility, but they would like it upgraded to our standard level of performance, which essentially is a 2-inch overlay of asphalt, which will cost $60,000. This work will be done in-house if the board approves it through our work program next summer season. I'd be happy. And with this agreement, we then convey all future maintenance responsibility to the road district and have no additional responsibility for this roadway.
Great. Questions or comments? See no objections.
Item 4, approval of an amendment to an intergovernmental agreement between Clackamas County and the City of Canby related to the South Ivy Street Sidewalk Improvement Project. Amendment value is $4,758,410. Total agreement value is increased to $6,947,225. Funding is through the State funded local project program, City of Canby, and the County Road Fund. No county general funds are involved.
This is a partnership that we have with the city of Canby to do improvements on Ivy Street. Essentially, the amendment that you see before you are additional improvements the city would like to see on that road, which we are entertaining and obliging with that, because essentially it'll be a city road from this point forward. The increased costs, the majority of which are on, will be paid by the city itself because they are asking for these improvements. No, there's minimal additional funding from the county at all. And the grant, I think the grant remained the same at about $166,000.
Yeah, thank you. You know, we talk up here about how expensive the human services are and the services we provide to people, and they are. But I don't think there's any single item more expensive in government than roads and sidewalks. I could be wrong, but the cost of that is huge.
It's a big increase.
Savas.
Yep.
Yeah, Dan, always appreciate opportunities to transfer roads out. Great work. Glad to also hear that a majority of this change order is borne by the city of Canby and not our scarce transportation dollars. So thanks for all the good work your department does in so many ways. Much
Appreciate
appreciated.
that. We have amazing staff that do amazing work.
Thank you. Seeing no objections.
Item 5, approval of a funding agreement with Clackamas County Arts Alliance to support small business owners through project facilitation and facilitate the purchase of art that will be installed in the new county courthouse. Agreement value is $200,000. Funding is through county lottery dollars. No county general funds are involved.
The board has already made a decision on this allocation. Essentially, it's for the courthouse, for them to partner and secure and leverage other resources to secure art for the courthouse. This is basically just a funding agreement to memorialize that with the Arts Alliance.
Questions or comments? Seeing no objections, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. That is the request for consent agenda. All of these items, except for the elected officials items, will be on this Thursday's business meeting for your final decision. Next, approval of proposed bylaws for the hamlet of Beaver Creek. Tonya Holowetsky, the interim director of Public and Government Affairs, will present. There was a memo in your packet. Welcome, Tonya. Go ahead, please.
Good morning. I'm just looking at the time. It is still morning. I was so eager to get up here that I jumped ahead of everybody, so my apologies. I am Tonya Holowetsky, Interim Director of Public and Government Affairs, and I am here on behalf of the hamlet of Beaver Creek. They are requesting the board to approve the proposed bylaws in front of you. The biggest change, or the change that happened for this proposal is that they are merging two community planning organizations in the hamlet area, Beaver Creek and Caris, and that is reflected in Article 4, Section 1, area boundary in the proposed bylaws.
Questions or comments on this? Gary?
The prior director signed it when it was due. Tonya's first day is today, so.
Okay, we'll let it slide. I just saw Sue's signature on this, and
Okay.
Sue is the
Making
director
sure
when this
you're
was due.
okay.
When this was due, Sue is the director. Tonya is the director as of 8 o'clock this morning, so.
Yes.
really, well, congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank
Interim
you.
director, I'm sorry.
Ring the
interim
bell.
director,
Yep.
Yeah.
And I just hazed myself.
Okay, thank you for this. Seeing no
yeah.
objections.
So we need a motion to approve.
Oh, we
please.
do need a motion. Yes, we do.
Yes, I move. Seconded.
Commissioner Savas has moved we approve the bylaws of the hamlet of Beaver Creek, and Commissioner Scholl has seconded the motion. Further discussion. Tony, please take the poll.
Commissioner West,
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl,
Aye.
Commissioner Savas,
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye, motion passes 4-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, advisory board and committee appointments. Tony, go ahead, please.
Starting with the Committee for Community Involvement, staffed by Public and Government Affairs, currently has 2 openings on their commission due to term expirations or vacancies. Through a recruitment process, 1 application was received and is recommended for appointment. That recommendation is Graham Smith to a first term.
I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Seconded.
Commissioner Savas has moved we appoint Graham Smith to the Committee for Community Involvement, and Commissioner Scholl has seconded that motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Tony, please take the poll.
Commissioner West,
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl,
Aye.
Commissioner Savas,
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye, motion passes 4-0. What's next?
Next up, the County Fair Board, staffed by the Board of County Commissioners and County Administration, currently has 2 openings on their commission due to term expirations. Through a recruitment process, 12 applications were received, 2 are recommended for appointment. Both are new to the board. Recommendations are Sarah Megenheimer and David Wilson, 2 first terms.
I will entertain a motion.
Chair, I move that we approve the recommendations of Sarah Megenheimer and David Jake Wilson.
Seconded.
Commissioner West has moved we approve to the Fair Board Sarah Megenheimer and David Jake Wilson, and Commissioner Shaw has seconded the motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Tony, please take the poll.
Commissioner Savas.
Aye.
Commissioner Schull.
Aye.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye. Motion passes 4-0.
The chair must step out.
Go ahead.
Last but not least on the ABCs, the Clackamas County Community Health Council, staffed by Health, Housing, Human Services. Through a recruitment process, that's a mess. Okay, we're going to go again. Apologies. Community Health Council grant requirement to maintain a majority of consumer members. Bylaws currently require 9 members. Through a recruitment process, 1 application was received for Tara Schofstall to a first term.
Motion.
Chair, I move that we approve the recommendation of Tara Schofstall for her first term to the Health Council, the Clackamas County Community Health Council.
Seconded.
Commissioner West has moved we approve the appointment of Tara Schofstall to the County Community Health Council, and Commissioner Shaw has seconded that motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Tony, would you please take the poll?
Commissioner Schull.
Aye.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye. Motion passes 4-0. Thank you.
Great. Next, the Association of Oregon Counties board seat for counties with population of 250,000 people or more. So the Association of Oregon Counties, the Board of Directors and the Legislative Committee has a board seat for any Oregon county that has over 250,000 population. Clackamas County is one of those. Commissioner Schull has served in that seat for the past year, perhaps longer. The Association of Oregon Counties would like an answer by the end of this month, December, if Commissioner Schull will retain that seat or if the board would like to appoint a different member. So that's why we're before you today. AOC is asking for this. So just seeking your confirmation, Commissioners, if Commissioner Schull will retain the seat or if a different commissioner would like to hold that seat.
Commissioner Shaw.
Yes, I think I have been on the board, AOC Board of Directors since January of this year. But I would like to keep the seat for 1 more year. I understand that Commissioner West is interested in it also. In January, we take a look each year at our board liaison duties. At that time, I would like to recommend that Commissioner West look at being on the Legislative Committee. I think that'd be important, which I'm on now, and also on the Governance and Revenue Committee, which I think he would serve well on. So again, if the board chooses, I'd like to stay on the Board of Directors for 1 more year.
Any further discussion? Commissioner West.
Commissioner Schull's right. I am interested in serving on this committee for the Association of County Board of Directors. I believe that this was brought up after leadership at AOC saw my leadership specifically in the area, the high priority area of addiction, housing, and mental health issues here, that and specifically the large counties, and actually the whole state, but specifically the large counties, and the leadership and the action that we have shown as a county that Commissioner Savas even alluded to in a previous comment. And they see me being an important voice on the board of directors, and as somebody that has quite a bit of health policy expertise and knowledge and workforce experience as an RN, to help the new board of directors address this issue statewide. I think that's why I was approached. I am open to serving at that capacity if this board so chooses. Absolutely no reflection of Commissioner Scholl's service at all. This board just has a choice between who and how it wants to be represented. I have much respect for the work that Commissioner Scholl has done on this board of directors. I think I bring, though, a really unique skill set on a very high priority issue at the AOC, and we've already seen the important role that this county has played in being a leading voice in the state of Oregon and with the counties on this issue. So I guess I'll start with that, but it's up to this board's, we get to choose, right? So here we are, but I am going to throw my hat in the ring for that position.
Commissioner Scholl, your light is still on?
Yes, I just put it back on.
Okay.
I just wanted to say that the Board of Directors of AOC, we deal with a broad spectrum of issues. Where the details get augured out is in the different committees of AOC. And that's where I think that Commissioner West's expertise on addiction issues would be most critically needed. Thank you.
Commissioner Savas, and then I'll make a statement.
Sure. I used to be that person in that position, and I thought that I could still be as effective and influential at AOC as it relates to transportation by just attending the AOC Transportation Subcommittee meetings, right, that take place. And I think that we all have, as you all know, opportunity to be heavily involved in AOC without having this title or this position. Really, how I saw it play out was essentially the work here is making sure you're attending the legislative committee meetings, which are really more business related than they are about any topics. The topics are actually discussed, the meaty part are in these committees, right, not at the legislative committee. And then for the positions that allow that person to be on the exec committee, it's more business of the AOC. So it's really about the more organizational seats than it is the voting rights for the organization than it is about the topic of interest. So that's why I step back a little bit. I also realize that being disconnected from some of the leadership of AOC, other county commissioners from other counties, has created a little bit more difficulty because they say, well, bring it up with the legislative committee. I go, I'm not on the legislative committee. When it comes up for this particular topic, you can enhance that discussion. So I've now also have been pinged, I should really step back into that role. So I will happily yield to the status quo if that's the case, but maybe we ought to be talking about it's 3 seats total, right, Gary?
It's one seat.
No. We have voting rights for 3 different titles. This one is 1 seat for the 250 and over, but there's 2 other seats I believe we have.
Yes.
Okay, so there's 3 seats. So maybe we could revisit this when Martha's here, if there's no urgency, or at least bring it back next week. I know Martha's out ill today, and see if we want to be involved with the organization. Or is our focus more on being involved with the particular topic or area of interest, which I know both of you are. Commissioner Scholl, you've done a great job on the forestry aspect, and Commissioner West, I have confidence you're going to do a great job for this particular area as well. But the question really is, for me, if I'm going to decide, is that are you willing to be a part of the organization meetings, which are less about your interest than it is anything else?
And then I want to make a comment.
Let me answer that directly I think that the incoming leadership wants to make some substantive changes within the organization to be more effective and to help galvanize the voice of all 36 counties, or the majority of counties where possible, to be much more effective in the policy space. One glaring issue that was an organizational issue was we all sat in on a breakout session on Measure 110, addiction. You may have been in a different break. The majority of us were there. Gary, you were there. Chair Smith was there. And it was very clear that panel, which the room was packed because it was such a high priority issue, that panel was woefully inadequate in addressing this issue and did not understand their audience. And there's a real lack of leadership in this high priority issue. That's an organizational issue. I think there has been a shift in this in this board from just being angry about this issue and seeing what we can do to being super purposeful and innovative on this issue this last year. And I think that that has one of the main things that has caught a lot of people's attention are talking about us in a real positive light. We've had some contention, we've had some struggles, but I think I'm super proud of what we're talking about and what we have and how we set the table. And other people are looking for our leadership. And so I think and I was heavily involved in the steering committee this last year on this issue and jumped in that way and helped drive that conversation through AOC. So I think that's why my name's been floated. I did not, for the record, it was not me that floated my name out there, but a few people did and thought that I would be a great fit organizationally with the new leadership coming on board. And so that's why I'm willing to explore that further with you guys. So I guess I'll leave it at that.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, we're missing a very important member on this board today who is heavily involved in AOC and NACO. She's out sick today, unfortunately. That happens. And I think her opinion on this is very valuable. So I'm going to recommend to commissioners that we make no decision on this today. We bring it back next week, or I even have another thing. And I would like Commissioners West and Scholl to sit down and have a discussion about this, because I'm not sure you have, and then come back, we'll revisit this, we'll put it on issues at the appropriate time. Now, I was also told at AOC that this appointment needed to be made by the end of the year to start in January. I don't know that that's true, because the legislative committee will not be appointed, and the executive committee will not be appointed, I don't think, by the end of the year. So can we do some checking on that? Because if we're going to be revisiting board liaison duties in January and making appointments, maybe that's the more appropriate time to do it. Gary, can you find that out for us?
I know it. The email from Gina Nickel, the director, said by December 31st, please, because there's a meeting on January 4th.
For this particular appointment?
Yes.
So commissioners, we'll bring it up next week when Commissioner Schrader is here. I don't want to be at a four-person. I don't know how the votes are going to fall down. You're putting Paul and I in a very precarious position of picking favorite child over other favorite child, and I don't like doing that, okay? So you two need to get together. Commissioner Savas, you're up.
Yeah, I agree, Chair, about waiting until next week when Commissioner Schrader's here. She's obviously played a significant role in AOC. And so I think that'd be a respectful thing to do and offer perhaps some insight. But bear in mind, I know that Commissioner Schrader's is on one seat. Commissioner Smith, you're on another? Is that correct?
No, I am not.
I thought we had 3 seats. So if there's another seat, I was understanding there's 3 seats. The 250 and over is one of them, but,
The previous AOC president,
okay.
and then there's a third category, which I don't recall.
Yeah.
And remember, on the board of directors, AOC, there's about 35 members. It's not just a small 8-person board.
It's large.
Like 35 people.
I served on all of those previously, and I was also on the 250 committee before, and I attended a lot of meetings, and it is an added workload if you do it correctly. I mean, there's no two ways about it. Gary, you're up.
The only seat we have is one, and that's members over 250K. Commissioner Schrader is on it because she's a past president. There is a special appointments by the president, which currently none of you sit on. When one of you are chairs of the District 8 committee, then you are on, but none of you are currently the chair or the co-chair. So right now, there's just one seat for Clackamas County.
So for counties that have under 250,000 population who are not on the districts, they have no seat at the table?
That is correct.
The bylaws must have changed, because I do remember when there were 3 voting members from Clackamas County.
Yes.
I remember
You're
voting.
correct.
I was
Correct
one
on
of the
that.
3.
So let's get this ironed out by next Tuesday. Gary, let's bring it next Tuesday, and
Yes.
Commissioner Schrader will be in attendance.
Yes.
That's what I'm going to recommend. Commissioners,
do.
is that okay? Okay, I'm getting a head nod. Thank you very much on this.
Will do. Thank you.
Gary, what's next?
All right, Chair, if I might do a time check, you have for the issues list, Measure 110 value statement and Commissioner Communications. You do have a policy session that was scheduled 30 minutes ago on the Stabilization Center Development Update. What would you like to do? Go through the lunch break, take a break and convene at 1? push till tomorrow. You have many options.
Commissioners, what do you want to do?
I'd soon get it done as soon as we can.
Okay, let's get it done. I think we can roll through the agenda. Gary, what's
Okay,
next?
we'll keep going. Still on issues, board business meeting agenda for this Thursday, December 7th, 2023, 10 a.m. You'll have all the consent items you discussed today on the agenda, along with public communication and commissioner updates. If you have any question on any item, please let me know prior to Thursday. Happy to answer it for you. Next, Measure 110 Value Statement. Chair Smith, you asked for this item.
I did. It was brought up last week during some discussion, I think maybe from Commissioner Savas, and I thought it was a good idea. We've had value statements on other issues, for instance, on tolling. And when Commissioner West last week asked to go down to the Oregon Legislature and testify on the legislative hearings that were held yesterday, it occurred to some of us here that maybe we need to codify our values on Measure 110 in a policy and/or value statement. So that's what I'm asking today. Are you willing to do that? I don't think it's going to be that difficult for us. We have a lot of work done on this. There's been a couple papers already written. And if you're willing to go forward on this, I think it's going to be important as we move forward into the short session and all the different players, the referral, the possible referral of the ballot in May, and just a lot of moving parts to this important matter. Commissioner West.
I guess I have a clarifying question, Chair. One, are we making a value statement on the Measure 110 policy, or are we doing a policy position paper, or both?
That's
Because
a
those
question.
are two different things, I feel
That's right.
like. I want, like, if we say repeal only as a Board of County Commissioners, or do we say repeal, replace, amend? Or do we say we're staying out of it? Or do we have, that's a value statement, and then, or do we have a policy position in which we can stand on too as a Board of County Commissioners on this kind of overall topic? I think what I just witnessed in Salem yesterday is very important information on how, on what road we take. But I just need a little clarity.
Well, I think that's for us to decide. I'm not dictating to this board. I'm asking the board, number one, do you want to make policy statements, value statements on Measure 110? What do you want that to look like? What we call it, I think, is secondary. I think if we can agree on certain points on Measure 110 is how I would approach it, and then I would have further discussion on it. Commissioner Scholl?
Yes, question. I think it was in September that the board sent a letter to the governor, as I recall, on Measure 110. Is that not correct? Didn't that letter contain, or was it to the legislature? Didn't that contain most of our feelings about what should happen to Measure 110?
I'm trying to remember.
Gary?
I don't remember either. You've written a lot of letters.
You know what?
I thought we did.
I may have missed a meeting. I know I was ill, so I don't know if it was during that period of time, but I don't
It might have
recall.
been before September, but, so how do you propose that we go about collecting our thoughts about what should go into this value statement?
Well, I think we assign a point person from the PAs to reach out to commissioners. What would you like to see in a statement? We haven't labeled the statement yet. We also look for previous actions and/or comments we've made collectively on this board, and I do think those are on the record. And we will look for any letters that have gone out, Commissioner Scholl. There is also a position paper that Martha Schrader and I have written recently in response to the people who want to put out a vote to the citizens on Measure 110 on decriminalization is one aspect. So I think we can collect those and we can put them together and basically go line by line. Yes, I can agree with this. No, I cannot agree with it. And if we come up with something, we come up with something. And it may be as simple as three lines.
So this value statement would be a tool to prime the thinking of the legislature when they meet in February okay.
And I think if any of us, for instance, are invited for testimony, now Commissioner West went down and we kind of took some time to say, please say this, please say this. Now, we've done the same thing with Commissioner Savas on transportation. We've had a transportation tolling value statement, and he's pretty much stayed to that statement, although things change. So what it does, I think it states our philosophy and our basis for going forward on what we want to have accomplished, without one person doing this and one person doing this. And we will have to address repeal or fix. We will have to address decriminalization, recriminalization. And so these are some heady issues that would need to be addressed in this paper. Mr. Savas?
Yeah, I think it'd be, well, first of all, most important thing, I would be concerned about putting staff in the position where it may appear as a daisy chaining, so to speak. I think having the public discussion amongst ourselves to find out what the common denominators are would probably be the most, as controversial as this issue is, would be the most productive, and do it in the cleanest way possible. So with that said, I think this is not a black and white issue. It's not black, white, and gray. It's not green. It's not blue. I mean, it's just, there's many different angles of this that have been revealed, in all these discussions, including yesterday. So I think that it would be valuable at least to find out what our common denominators are, what we all agree on. Again, knowing how politically charged this issue is, I think it would help clarify or help resolve or lessen the opportunities for people to either misunderstand or misconstrue our intent.
Gary?
Should you agree to do this, and I recommend you do, I'll handle it. I'll work with staff to write a draft. We'll run it by you individually and then bring it publicly for a discussion. That's how we do the process.
Commissioner West?
Couple things just on this that I think are important for us to consider. Yes, there is a number of different things floating out there from different organizations and groups that are represented by electeds, some good, some bad, some meh, and there's some framework to build off of. But I think it's super important that we address whether or not to repeal or amend, and I want to make statements about that really quick. To repeal puts us back to what was also not a good situation before we had Measure 110. It was better than we have it now, but we still go back to not good. And so I think that's super clear. We were still real bad in all of the objective measurements on where we were at with helping people get treatment and services. I fundamentally believe that if you want treatment and services, it absolutely must and should be available to you. We can't even offer that to anybody still, about 3 years later after Measure 110's passed. However, the legislature has had lots of opportunities to still direct. We didn't need Measure 110 to direct funding to this issue. We have put in the general fund alcohol tax, cigarette tax, all the sin taxes. We still had all the marijuana taxes, and the legislature still did not take its leadership and continue to abdicate its role and never actually direct real funding towards treatment. Actually, historically, this state has chosen through the legislature to divest and to dismantle avenues for real treatment and access to care and housing. But you don't necessarily need a Measure 1, we need a legislature that will act, but at the same time, we could have wishful thinking, because what I saw in Salem was a bunch of the same voices with the same broken ideas, with the same mantra, trying to do the same thing with expecting different results. And so it felt a little bit like a dog and pony show yesterday that was stacked against those of us that want real reforms and real innovative ideas. So maybe we do need an amendment, because going back to what it was before wasn't great either, though ideally we don't meet, it's a little bit of a compromise, like with the ballot measure coming out. So just trying to figure out, do we support a full repeal and going back to what it was and demanding the legislature to do its role to direct funding? Or do we say we still want the funding streams and we want a new governance model on how that money is allocated, because it was quite ideological, that governing board with Measure 110 that would give the funds out? It was super ideological driven. They by no means were experts in how to do this. There wasn't a heavy professional voice in that board. So there needs to be, there's some real flaws with Measure 110, along with a real lack of investment in real treatment. So I think we got to make a decision whether or not we want to repeal, or we want to go through the amendment process similar to the Max Williams group and what's being put forth, the ballot measure that's probably going to move forward, because this legislature I don't think is going to take real action. But however, a lot of the conversation is just around recriminalizing, and there's still a lack of really communication about what treatment looks like and what that aspect of moving forward has to look like, not just bringing back some penalties. And so we have to have a philosophy that's backed by some evidence, and that has to inform our policy position, whatever we put together. I would be more than happy to try to work with staff to maybe communicate some of that and bring that back to this board. But I think if we're gonna do something so big as a lift of this, to have one of us working with staff to do what you're suggesting, Gary, is important, and I would be willing to help do that.
And I too will be working with staff on this too. So I think there's a misunderstanding on the marijuana dollars. Those marijuana dollars had always been set aside for addiction treatment. If you were to repeal Measure 110, it is my understanding, and I could be wrong and I would need legal counsel on this, those marijuana dollars would still be available for addiction treatment in the counties where the money is collected. Because I was on this commission the last time. The only thing Measure 110 is, they gave us this ruse, oh, there's all these marijuana dollars that we can use for treatment. So I am not entirely maybe in agreement with that, because I believe the marijuana dollars are going to be already in place, but we need a staff opinion on that. I could be wrong on that. Commissioner Savas?
Yeah, I don't want to belabor this, but I just want to point out something that is very bothersome to me. With my 13 years of experience, I realize whether it's the voters by initiative or whether it's the legislators by action, can make a move or make a law, and then it changes. I mean, nothing's static. The intent of marijuana money was to go towards this. That was intent, right? But intent changes, right? And, there's a bucket of money and it gets, swiped a little bit here and swiped a little bit. It's like lottery dollars. I mean, it's always changing. So I think that's disappointing. But what's different here is, from a legislative action, that this is a voter-driven, voter-approved thing, and I think that is something that needs a little bit higher regard for and respect. Not that, again, I'm not taking a position on the measure itself here. I'm just making the statement that be mindful when the voters approve something and we tamper with it, or the legislators tamper with it, that we do it in a way, frankly, that is a little bit more cautious and a little bit more sensitive to the issues. And what is permanent? What assures all those permanencies? I would like to hear from law enforcement. I would like to hear from the treatment industry. I've heard a lot of that already. But what is the right mix on this? I just don't see it as black and white. I don't see it as simple as you do.
Well, do we support repeal, or do we support repeal, replace, or amend? Like, that's two different real pathways here policy-wise. Those are two different philosophies. I don't think either one negate the need to truly direct the funds where they need to go, and I think the legislature's abdicated its role election cycle after election cycle on this particular issue. Like alcohol tax and cigarette tax, those all go into the general fund. They're not really directed towards addiction and treatment services. The marijuana dollars, it was all kind of squishy. So I think that whatever we do, I hope that this board supports real substantive and targeted funding towards a recovery-oriented system of care, regardless of whatever happens with Measure 110. But we need a clear direction, one, when we direct our staff to do something, and two, like we can put on our website with all the other great stuff that we've done, this is what Clackamas County is, and this is the policy that's informed by it.
So, Chair, in the interest of time, overall, my position is I suggest we have a work session to talk some of these things
Well,
through.
we'll have a work session for sure, but we need a basis to start with. And it's easy for us to sit here and talk all day long and then not have something substantial. But we do need to start with a paper, and we will have a policy session on this. Any commissioner can make any contribution they see fit on this. So in the interest of time, Gary, I think there's enough consensus to move forward with something on this.
Yes.
And we'll see how staff goes about putting this together as far as the time on this. It's not going to get done till next year, but we can all add what we think is important. Gary, what's next?
The final item for issues is Commissioner Communications, and you still have a policy session to go.
Commissioners, I am not going to speak on Commissioner Communication today. Is there something really burning that needs to be said? You can do it now, and then if not, we'll move on to our final policy session of the day.